Okay, well, thank you for joining us tonight for our second in the Delivering Housing Solutions series. This is the Joe Lyons Memorial Speaker Series on housing and homelessness. Tonight, we're going to touch on affordable housing and community building services. And we're so lucky to have Michael de la Torre from National Core. He's the Senior Vice President for the LA region. Before we go into that, just wanted to do some quick housekeeping and remind folks how they can get connected and stay informed with us. Of course, we have our standard website. We've got our Facebook group. New to us is our Instagram at Bonita Democrats. So if you are on Instagram, please follow us. And we do post all of our meetings and speakers programs on our YouTube channel. If you're not yet a member, membership is as low as $10 per calendar year, and encourage you to join us and become an official voting member. Again, this is in memory of Joe Lyons, and just wanted to remind folks why Joe and why a memorial program for him. And what's the connection to the Bonita Dems? Well, prior to him being a council member and mayor of the city of Claremont, he was in fact one of the original charter members of Bonita Dems. He was a red zone Senate candidate back in 2008, and I was able to find a picture for tonight's meeting of him participating in the City of Laverne 4th of July parade as the Senate candidate back in 2008. He was unsuccessful as a red zone candidate for the state Senate, but as a result of that campaign and earning about 126,000 votes for the area, there was an open seat on the city council for Claremont. He had some significant name recognition from that campaign effort, and he ran for city council. Subsequently, he served 2 full terms, and over those 2 terms, he became the resident champion for housing and homelessness. Tonight, we do have a special memorial recognition of Joe. But before we do that, I just wanted to introduce who will be sharing that memorial. Unfortunately, Scott is traveling on vacation with his wife. So he did submit a recorded memorial for tonight, and I will play that shortly after I read his brief bio. For over 30 years, Scott Chamberlain has devoted his life to addressing issues related to people experiencing homelessness. For 10 years, Scott served as the founding pastor of Skid Row's LA Central City Church of the Nazarene and executive director of Central City Community Outreach. He chose to live downtown and near Skid Row to better understand the people that he served. Most recently, Scott is the executive director of the San Gabriel Valley Consortium on Homelessness. And it is in that position that he connected with Joe Lyons. So I'm going to transition to his brief testimony. And if you'll just have a little patience with me with technology.
Hi, my name is Scott Chamberlain, and I'm the Executive Director of the San Gabriel Valley Consortium on Homelessness. And it's an honor to be able to share just a few thoughts about the amazing Joe Lyons for this Joe Lyons Memorial Speaker Series. I first met Joe about 13 years ago as I was stepping into a position that the San Gabriel Valley COG and LOS had created called the Housing and Homeless Coordinating Council. I attended one of the COG meetings and then went to Claremont City Council as there was individuals who were unhoused who were sleeping on the streets. And I believe it was kind of the Housing Claremont movement. And I remember Joe, even at that time, having so much passion, so much intellect to be able to prove everybody else in the room really wrong, to be able to be on their heels, because Joe knew more than them about housing and homelessness. And he knew that the city of Claremont, as well as the San Gabriel Valley, had to respond in an effective way to really be the region that we needed to be. I left that position after a couple of years because of redevelopment funds. But then about 3 years ago, I got a call from Joe Lyons asking me to come back into the role as the San Gabriel Valley Consortium's executive director. They had transitioned out of somebody else, and they were having difficulty with the contract with our county supervisors. And so again, Joe stepped up to the plate, not only for me, but for the consortium, because he knew that the consortium's role of educating and collaborating and advocating in the San Gabriel Valley was really important to prevent and end homelessness. And so I remember Joe giving calls to our county supervisors and them responding pretty quickly that they would really support the contract for the consortium. Even a couple of years after that, as he was chair of our board and he served in so many different ways, he would have conversations with COG leaders and really would go head to head with them, because some of the cities really weren't responding effectively to housing and homeless related issues. Even when he stepped off of our board as the chair, as he got a little bit more sick in the fall of last year, he still served as our continuum of care rep for the San Gabriel Valley. So time and time and time again, my memories of Joe has to do with his passion and his intellect and his deep heart for those who are unhoused. And so as I think about a commitment, not only myself, but others in the San Gabriel Valley, to prevent and end homelessness through housing creation, I'm always going to think of Joe Lyons. His amazing father-like attitude that would drive and push to be able to make sure to make this world a better place. So thank you for keeping Joe's memories alive and that passion through conversations that you are having even today. And so have a wonderful day as we continue to remember the amazing Joe Lyons. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I really want to thank Scott for taking the time to share that special testimony before he got on the plane to enjoy Paris with his wife. And like I said earlier, we are so lucky to have our keynote distinguished speaker tonight, Michael de la Torre from National Core. I'm going to share a little bit of Mike's bio. As Senior Vice President of the LA region, Michael guides the day-to-day operations and overall strategy, direction, and management of the acquisitions process at National Core. His team's responsibilities extend from project identification and feasibility, securing project financing from public and private lenders. The acquisitions team also coordinates development approvals, supervises consultants, and serves as a liaison with funding partners and community stakeholders. Michael oversees government relationships, new product development, due diligence, and risk management for affordable housing developments. Before joining CORE, Michael worked in the low-income housing tax credit industry, gaining experience in both the public and private sectors. Michael also worked as a rental housing specialist and risk assessor for the state of Arizona Department of Housing. Michael earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in communications from California State University, Fullerton. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing. Mike's going to share his screen, and we're going to learn a little bit about affordable housing and the community wraparound services that National Corps provides.
Perfect. Can everyone see the screen, the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt, for that introduction. Let me see. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Michael De La Torre. I'm with National Corps. We are a nonprofit affordable housing developer. And we build housing throughout the state of California, whether that's for families, seniors, veterans, and homeless housing. National Corps, we've been around for over 30 years. Here we believe that both people and place matter, and leading a healthy lifestyle starts with the basic requirements of having a stable and affordable home. Again, we were founded in Rancho Cucamonga in 1992. We've grown to become one of the largest affordable housing developers in the nation. Currently, we have over 500 employees across California, Florida, Texas. We operate over 10,000 units, and we're a full service organization. We do everything in-house. We're vertically integrated. And so everything in-house starts from acquiring the sites, again, obtaining necessary land use approvals, constructing the buildings, managing them once they're operational, and of course, maintaining them so they'll be in the best shape as the years go by. Also, of course, complying with the rules and regulations that govern affordable housing. Wanted to jump into a couple of highlighted properties that we've completed. This one here is Fairview Heights, located in Inglewood, California. That's 101 units. Half of those units are for folks, half of those units are set aside for individuals and families who have experienced homelessness. This development here offers, 5,000 square feet of ground level community serving retail space. It's actually located directly across the LA Metro's new Fairview Heights stations. So residents have access to transportation. It's the new K line, connects from Crenshaw to LAX and keeps going. And so you'll notice on a couple of these photos on this development, again, custom artwork on our building. Corner of the building is a public, what we call a transit plaza. And of course, amenities tailored to the community of folks who live at this property. Another one of our developments that I wanted to highlight was Veterans Park. This site's located in the city of Pomona, also a transit-oriented community. It's about 2 blocks from the Pomona Transit Center, walking distance from Pomona's downtown arts district. And again, you can see the architectural design, complements the historic Pomona train depot, some of the surrounding buildings, and so offers, again, 61 units, 100% affordable housing for veterans. The next one I wanted to touch base on is our VISTA Grande Court. This is 100% senior housing in partnership with the city of Glendale. This is kind of a colonial Spanish style architecture. It's designed with pedestrian-friendly walkways, paseos, plazas, courtyards, strategically designed this way to get seniors out of their units and working with them. So I wanted to highlight a couple of those 3 properties. Again, senior communities wanted to touch on a little bit. Right now we're seeing, I'll say in the state of California, but it might be nationwide, the growing number of affordable housing for seniors is one of the fastest growing populations that we're seeing and it's affecting as well as a lot of senior homelessness. And so we're going in that direction, across Southern California in a lot of communities. Sustainability, I think core, being an in-house contractor, we focus, we believe that, housing needs to be created, but in a way that sits lightly on the earth. We pride ourselves in incorporating sustainable design features into each of our projects. Any new development at a minimum is going to have drought tolerant landscaping, water efficient fixtures to reduce water usage. We're typically going to provide space for solar panels on our roofs of our buildings. And we also provide incentives to our residents to use transportation, public transportation. We also provide often car sharing spots in our communities, as well as bicycle parking, to trees to encourage walking. And now we're moving in the direction of providing EV charging stations at some of our communities. On-site management, what's different about what I would say that sets National Core apart, being a nonprofit affordable housing developer, being vertically integrated, is we have our own property management organization that runs all of our properties. And that's important for a number of reasons. We found that to be highly successful. That means that we have our staff on site 24 hours a day. We're kind of, if anything happens at a property, folks go directly with us. Our property managers create a sense of community. And so it's something that we've seen to be successful on our sites. Every property has a robust resident selection process. Oftentimes it's a lottery to see who's able to come in, but every person is going to be screened, criminal background check, as well as income certified. And yes, wanted to mention our Hope Through Housing Foundation. National Core, we have a sister nonprofit supportive service organization, the Hope Through Housing Foundation. We call them Hope. Hope is responsible for partnering with local community groups, service organizations to tailor supportive services for our families, our seniors, or our veterans. Every program is tailored to the population. It's customized to that property. Some of our developments we have after daycare, after school care.
What'd you have for dinner?
And some other youth programming. And what we found is that's critical to allow parents to work full time. We also through Hope provide financial consultations, education workshops for our residents. Helping them improve their credit, reduce debt, linking them to our community centers in the buildings, and offering a wide range of services. Another example is our seniors. During COVID, we found, setting them up with Zoom, showing them kind of some of the stuff they could connect to family, and of course, doing other senior focused services like exercises, social activities, and links to healthcare, transportation, and food donations. Again, I think what we found is resident services is critical. It starts with the housing, but we found providing those wraparound services for our residents is critical in improving the well-being of everyone. Development objectives. I think every time that National Core comes in a community, we try to hit a couple pillars, and that's addressing a community need, meeting with the community, finding out what type of housing, what they're looking for, how do we tailor services around that. And then, of course, every property is custom architecture designed to fit into a community, as well as, focus on sustainability. And making sure that we have a lasting impact. Here at National Core, we own and operate every single development. We maintain affordability covenants on them for over 55 years. And so you're going to see with us is we're going to have that early upfront investment into every one of our buildings. We're going to spend a little bit more on fixtures, on quality, because what we found is that early upfront investment stands the test of time. So just a little bit more about us. And of course, every development, we have a robust community outreach program, meeting with local leaders, meeting with community groups, with the neighbors. And this is kind of an example of some of the programming we do once, we've identified a property and we're looking to develop it. People often ask kind of what does the development process look like? It's a long process, typically takes 3 to 5 years to complete. It's about a year and a half for land use approvals, typically another 2 years for financing. And once we break ground, it's usually 24 months to complete the project. So it's a long process, but it's something that we know and we do well. And sort of wraps up my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. But appreciate the invite, Matt, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about National Core, what we do, and we're happy to help everybody else with their affordable housing needs in their communities.
Well, thank you, Michael. And I'm going to start us off with the questions. And if anyone has a question, please don't hesitate to raise your hand, or if you're more comfortable, you can type it in the chat. But in regards to affordable housing, what assistance is available to developers?
So there's assistance, I think, can mean a number of things, and so I'm going to try to wrap that into land use as well as financing. I think is probably the two main points that we typically need when it comes to affordable housing. Right now, communities throughout the state of California have been working the last year to get in compliance with our housing element, and so typically, what makes it easier to provide affordable housing is having cities, really have their plan, land use approvals, and have that, hopefully get streamlined. Now, the state of California has stepped in quite a bit, passing a number of state codes to, for maybe lack of a better term, to give politicians a little bit of cover when it comes to affordable housing in terms of providing the tools necessary to approve developments throughout the state. So that's one thing. And when it comes to financing, and I'll focus sort of on the LA region, a little bit on the state level. So we typically go after, in order to put together the capital stack of an affordable housing development, it often takes the local city, the county, and the state of California. And so County of Los Angeles, they typically provide resources, once a year that developers compete with their their housing project to see if they could secure funding. We also have to compete at the state level to bring in other critical dollars, and then ultimately we go after low-income housing tax credits. That's the biggest piece of our capital stack, the largest piece of equity. And people often ask, what is the tax credit? Really, it does nothing for us. It's a tax credit that we go and sell to a tier 1 investor. This is kind of your Verizons or some of your bigger companies. And then we turn that into dollars that actually go directly into building a building. And so resources for us, I think, whenever we're looking to build affordable housing, I think it starts at the community level, having the support, making sure the information is out to the neighbors, to the local groups, building that coalition and getting buy-in from the local community. Then it becomes a factor of land use, right? And how do we design something that can meet all the rules and regulations, at the local level as well as the state level. And some of those state codes assist us when it comes to, for example, density bonus. Sometimes we need a setback adjustment to make the deal, financially feasible. And then it comes down to, being successful in competing for all these levels of financing and being able to build and deliver a building. And so, it's always great to have this beautiful concept, but if you can't pay for it, it never gets done and nobody benefits. And I think that's what we do well here at National Core is presenting a well thought out proposal to get that approved at all levels.
Thank you.
There's a hand up with it.
Yeah. Isabel, do you want to unmute and ask the question?
Sure. Hi, Michael, and thank you. And I love hearing about the wraparound services. But I'm also curious if National Core, because we're seeing this increase in grandparents raising grandchildren, are there any grand family affordable housing projects in your future?
So that I'm so happy you brought that up. So that's actually in California, and so we have sort of fair housing law. So I got to be careful of how that's, how we do that. So actually, I'm going to kind of go back to the state of Arizona. State of Arizona, probably it's been about 10 years now. They were actually I'll say a kind of a leader in that. They did we did a development call in partnership with a developer called GRANDE Families, and it was just that. It was a senior community that allowed for they were the primary caregiver for their grandchildren, basically. Now here we are focused on senior housing, and we don't have kind of that grand family concept. That's something I need to explore a little bit more. Typically, when it comes to a senior community, we have an age restriction that limits that to 62 years of age. Now there's some rules and regulations that we can't you can't have occupancy with other groups, and so that's something that I think we need to look at a little bit more. I think we're seeing that growing need more and more, and so that's I'm glad you brought that up. That's something I think we need to explore more of and see if we're able to do that with some of the state and federal rules that are in place in California right now.
Thank you.
Karen?
Hello. I'm always happy to hear about housing, because at least in Claremont, most people aren't aware of what affordable really means. They think of people making $25,000 a year, which of course is an area. But when you think about how I look at the ads in the paper and it says, if you're a health educator, we can offer you $42,000 a year. Well, you can't rent an apartment if you're making that little. But in Claremont and some of the other cities, we don't have land for 150 units. We have a number of smaller parcels that could be rezoned, that could be, but it would be so piecemeal. It would be what was the Larkin Park was 31, I think, and that was considered to be large. So what do you do when there's no land or not enough land? How small do your projects have to be in order, or how small can they be in order to make a difference?
So I would say, here at National Core, we've done projects as small as 20 units, all the way up to 340 units. Currently we have 340 units under construction in the city of Glendale right now. So it all depends. I would say, there's a number of factors that go into, how do we make something work? I like to say 50 units is probably that cutoff, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. We often partner with cities to do often smaller developments, right? Because that's what that's the land available. Working in the this is urban infill throughout Southern California. A lot of it is, and so we often being affordable housing, fortunately or unfortunately, we often get the most challenging sites. And so I would say we have to be pretty creative just because we're competing with larger market rate groups. And so sometimes we get, challenging sites, but I'm glad you brought up kind of the affordability. Oftentimes this is the big concern I hear when we're chatting with, some community folks, like, we don't want those people here. These oftentimes they're already here. They're in your community. This is the grandparent who's going between, different family members staying with. These are, your medical assistants, your retail workers, your entry level, folks who are starting off, some of your teachers, your childcare workers, they all fall, this is, it's affordable housing, but really it's workforce housing a lot of times. These are the folks who are working one or two jobs. And this is why affordable housing is so critical. When I tour our properties and talk to the families who live there, oftentimes we see, a mom and dad, a mom with a couple of kids, and she's working 2 or 3 jobs. But when you have a fixed rent that's not going to, be increased over time, hopefully you could bring that down. Having the wraparound services with childcare, that hopefully allows, creates a safe environment for your children. These people can, either go back to school, hopefully work less, be able to plan. And we see that, and we see them, move out of our communities, become first-time home buyers, or work less, go back to school to try to get that next level of job. And so, I often say, these are the folks that are already in your community, and oftentimes I think people right now they're going to the homeless housing. We do a lot of homeless housing, and it's not just, you have a lot of varying levels of who needs housing. I think everybody does, but I think wraparound services with good quality housing really makes a difference.
Is Steve Pontel your president or former president?
Yeah, so Steve Pontel what was our president for 10 plus years. He recently retired from National Corps, but you might see him still. We had an event that he was just speaking at. Not too, you probably will see Steve Pontel at a number of events, even though he's retired. This National Corps is still dear to his to our organization. And so he's still, I wouldn't be surprised if you still see him at a few affordable housing events, representing National Corps. But yes, he did just retire not too long ago.
Thank you. I think he's done a wonderful job.
Now, Michael, you had highlighted the veterans community in Pomona. Specific to that project, is it the city approaching National Corps approaching the city, a little bit of both? How does a project like that happen?
Yeah, so it's developments happen, in a number of ways. And so you have your classic kind of private seller. I have a piece of property that I'm looking to sell, but I would say a big part of affordable housing happens in partnerships with the cities. They oftentimes own property, and they issue an RFP, a request for proposal. And so it's essentially a public process where they're saying, we have a piece of property, we're looking to do this. And groups such as ourselves, we put together a proposal and we compete, and it's a number of different ways. It's of how you're awarded a site. I would say a lot of that has happened here. Pomona, there was a need for housing. Our Glendale property was in partnership, also a city-owned property, and so we partner typically with cities. And working with them in terms of they have property that they need to dispose of, and so we're going in to compete and see if we could turn that into affordable housing. And so
I guess now, did they tell you they needed veteran housing, or how did it become, I guess, a veteran housing community? Was it directed by the city? Do you know?
Yeah, let me go back and give you the exact kind of how that one was. But this property was in partnership. It was a partnership deal, new construction, and so part of I think why we were selected was some of the amenities we provided there. There was a big push in California for veteran housing to get they issued a number of programs because this was a priority of the state, of local government. To provide housing. And so I think it was, I don't want to say that it was a requirement, but I think it was highly incentivized. And so I could kind of let you know, but there's certain instances where, yes, the local agency will say, look, we want to target, families, seniors, veterans. And so it really comes down to, are you able to accommodate that? And how we approached it was, working with the City of Pomona Housing Authority, the county housing authority, and then of course the state. And so it took about 4 or 5 public agencies to make this property happen and get completed.
And typically when you say affordable housing, there's a lot of, I guess, mental pictures that people have that are negative in I guess connotation. How do communities overcome objections to building more low income housing?
So I think our approach has gone pretty well, and that's really us getting out early in front of communities and sharing information. I think a lot of times folks, exactly what you said, is they have, these misconceptions that they automatically go to. And so what we found to combat that, I guess, is really just sharing information, setting up tours, letting people know. A lot of our properties, that's something, and I'll offer to this group as well. We're happy to set up a tour anytime. But I found that's been one of the greatest things. I've had community members say, I've walked by that building X amount of times. I thought it was a market rate building. And part of that is just showing and then going in and seeing the services, seeing the sense of community. A lot of times, you're going to create blight, and it doesn't happen. We're often the nicest property in the neighborhood. And that's because of our staff being there every single day, 24 hours a day. Again, we don't build and leave. We're there every single day. And I would say the biggest part is kind of education and really just sharing information, showing them what affordable housing looks like, showing them the services, the people. A lot of times it's takes time, and you're not going to sway everybody, but I would say kind of the biggest thing is just sharing the information and getting folks out and taking a look and seeing what affordable housing looks like. Because it's top notch, and it's not even the new properties, that works all the time. But really where I've seen kind of the impact and swaying people is here's a 10, 20-year-old property. Look at how it's maintained. And that's because who we are and what we do. And I think it goes a long way. And again, people work who live in our communities. They're working, multiple jobs. These are the folks in your community. And it's just, sharing information, letting them see kind of what housing does and how it stabilizes folks. And that's sort of the approach I think we take. Sounds simple. It doesn't always go well, but I would say that's probably some of the best ways, I guess.
Are there any other questions out there? Hands raised. I don't see any comments. I do have one more, and Karen kind of touched on this in regards to, I guess, they hear low income or affordable housing, and they think, okay, someone's making 40, 50,000. In Bonita Unified, that serves San Dimas and Laverne, an entry-level teacher, a starting teacher, cannot afford to live in Laverne and San Dimas. Does state and federal law allow for communities for like public servants, like you had touched on workforce housing, an educators community, or a community for public servants, or are we just not allowed to do that?
Yeah, so sort of a fair housing. Fair housing is the issue that happens now. We can't, I think senior housing is the only kind of restrictions that allows, not violating, those, fair housing. But anyone who can apply to live in one of these communities, and I'll share one last slide. Just, this is kind of Los Angeles, and I got to check, but this is, just something, what is affordable housing? What do they make? And so, low income housing, making 50,000 a year, you qualify to live here. 2-person households at, 57,000. And it, the range we typically serve is 30 to 80% area median income. I don't have the 80% on this slide yet. But you're roughly around that 75,000. mark. So if you think about it, you have that, somebody who's making 75,000 a year qualifies to live in affordable housing. Once people see some of the numbers, they start realizing, oh, that's my son out of college, who qualifies, these are working folks. And again, it's sort of, these are sort of the rents based off of it, but your entry level firefighters, some of your entry level nurses, and now it all depends, but you got to income qualify. These are published limits. So just wanted to share that, as well as, who are these people that live there? You have a job, you're working, you're just trying to find safe, quality housing. So, did I answer that question, Matt? Sorry.
Yeah. No. I thank you for sharing that slide. I hadn't seen those numbers recently. So I don't see any additional questions. I'll let you close it up. Is there any last words?
No, appreciate the invite again. Feel free to reach out to me with any other questions. We're always, happy to set up tours in Claremont right now. I think would be I heard that mentioned a couple of times here. I think we love to do some housing there. I know they made the news a little bit, probably recently. And so that's something, I think some folks think of that as a, maybe we stay away from that city. Here at National Core, we're trying to get in the door there and talk to them and say, hey, look, maybe that might have gone sideways, but that's not how affordable housing is done. And so, we're trying to get in the door right now, kind of talking about who we are, what we do, what quality housing looks like. We could always use support for housing. I'd urge you to, talk to your local council member and give your support, because that's often getting community support, building those coalitions is critically important. And so, urge everyone to support it. And any questions, please reach out, let me know. But we're happy to, set up a tour, happy to answer any questions that come up. But thank you again, Matt, for inviting me. Let me just share a little bit about National Core, who we are and what we do, and hope you all have a good evening.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.